our game of the week, and it's Ohio State, third-ranked team in the country, against Penn State. They're welcoming the Nittany Lions to town. This is the 11 a.m. kick on Fox. Ohio State favored by 4. And guys, when I look at this game, there are so many questions for me that stand out. Number one, I think the overwhelming question, certainly in my camp, is Penn State legitimate? I began this season by asking, if not now, then when for Penn State, right? They have all the talent. James Franklin, supposedly an elite coach, right? If he is going to win a game on the road, a top 10 opponent, a top 5 opponent, it's got to start this week. James Franklin is 1-8 against Ohio State. The only win came back in 2016 when he upset the Buckeyes at home. I'll throw this to you guys. And Trey, maybe if you want to start here, let's look at the X's and O's. If James Franklin is going to kind of shun his past reputation in some of these big conference games, what should we be looking forward to?
To me, it's how this really talented Penn State secondary lines up with the extremely talented Ohio State receivers. And can Kyle McCord get the ball into their hands and find those tight windows? Probably against the best secondary he's going to face all season. So, that's been what's been holding this Ohio State team back. The chemistry, just for whatever reason, hasn't been there between Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. The rest of that talented receiving core, it's just been inconsistent, right? We've seen when it's clicked. There's been a few times this year that we've seen a few of the old Ohio State-esque bomb touchdowns to these talented receivers, but that that compatibility or that timing or just something has been off and been inconsistent with the chemistry between Kyle McCord and his receivers so far this year. And it's not going to get any easier this week. We talk about, just every year, it seems like Penn State's going to put a cornerback at the top of the draft, right? And that's no different this year. They have great secondary, great talent back there, and it's going to be a huge challenge for this Ohio State offense that wants to move the ball down the field vertically, but just hasn't really been able to consistently so far this year.
Penn State's pass defense tops in the country. They're allowing just 121 yards. One coach coordinator who had faced Ohio State said in the Athletic article this week, if you can stop Marvin Harrison Jr., if you can stop him, if you can prevent the offense from running through him, you've got a chance. And that certainly has seemed somewhat relevant this season. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., it's not like he hasn't been productive, right? 31 catches, 604 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's still gotten his. But I think when we look at, has he been an X factor? I don't know if we can answer that, quite honestly, because Ohio State, outside of their win over Notre Dame, where nobody passed well, McCord and Sam Hartman were held under 200 yards passing each in that game. Outside of that matchup, we haven't really seen Marv get tested, right? And he's disappeared in some games. Facing the number 1 passing defense, which may be propped up by some bad passing offenses, I'll grant you that. But still, we highlighted this Penn State secondary as a difference maker coming into play this season. So far, they've lived up to the billing. Garrett, on the other side, you've got 2 very interesting pass rushes that will be going up against each other.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are 2 really, really solid defenses, and they rely a lot on pass rush. Look, you don't get to be it respectively. It's Penn State's the 2nd scoring defense, and then for Ohio State, it's the 3rd. You don't get to be in that spot if you don't have solid defensive efforts. I don't care who you play. I don't care that, for Penn State, they ain't played nobody, but it's Iowa, right? Like, I get it. You ain't played nobody, Paul, but at the same time, you still would put up more points on a bad defense or on an average defense. These are 2 really, really solid defenses. And you're right. They rely on the pass rush. Both of them have really solid secondaries. They have athletes across the field. And that's, I think, what's going to make this so interesting is because when you look at both quarterbacks, there's comparisons between the 2, right? Drew Aller, Kyle McCord, both, less experience. Obviously McCord's been in the system a little bit longer. He's a little bit older, but this is both of their first chance really at getting the reins as the number 1 guy in their offense. And both guys have played pretty similarly, McCord with, a little bit more passing yards, Aller still hasn't thrown a pick, and so we're kind of looking at that as a situation there. But I'm looking at this matchup and I'm saying against two really solid defenses, how are these guys going to look, right? You've got Penn State. They played Iowa. That's a really good defense. If you've got Ohio State, you've played Notre Dame. That's a really good defense, right? And so you've played good defenses on both sides, and the quarterbacks have stepped up. I'm curious to see now that they go against each other and you actually have to put this one on the field, which pass rush gets home and pressures the inexperienced quarterback? Who gives them the interesting look that confuses them and forces a bad throw, maybe turns it into an interception? What do we do for either of those situations? So I'm curious to see how that plays out. I think we're going to have a relatively low-scoring game. This isn't financial advice, but I'd probably hammer the under in this one, and just go ahead and say that there's not going to be loads of points, but it's going to matter. There's going to be loads of big plays offensively. Even if it doesn't always translate into touchdowns.
I do tend to like the under there. Penn State's offense, I know they hung 63 on the Minutemen last weekend, but in the bigger spots, Aller has not thrown for a ton of yardage. Penn State's offense certainly hasn't lit it up. The guys to watch, certainly on the defensive side, Chop Robinson is an All-American kind of guy, an early round draft pick from Penn State, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. On the other side, you have JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, the dynamic edge rushing duo from Ohio State. Numbers aren't gaudy this season, right? JT, 4 tackles for loss. He's got 3 sacks. Jack Sawyer only has 1 sack to his name this season. Ohio State's pass rush is only actually 69th in the country. Meanwhile, Penn State has a top 10 unit. So to me, advantage Penn State there. One other thing to kind of keep in mind before we make our picks in this game, Penn State, when they've looked vulnerable this season, it's been by running on them, and specifically by running up the middle. Ohio State was down to their 4th string running back in a game against Purdue last week. You had Chip Trayanum leave. Traven Henderson injured, missed the game, might be coming back. His status is, at this point, as we're recording this on a Tuesday night, unknown. But Trey, let's kick this off. Given the fact that Ohio State, at the very least, won't have a fully healthy running back room, the Buckeyes are favored by 4 at home. Which way are you leaning?
It's so hard to beat Ohio State in Columbus, but I kind of get the feeling that Penn State's going to knock them off this weekend. I'm leaning towards Penn State, definitely +4. I'm tempted to pick outright, but I think Penn State definitely covers a 4-point spread. I think it's going to be another, game similar to the Notre Dame game for Ohio State. I think you're going to see a lot more, for whatever reason, tough, grinded out wins for Ohio State this year. And this is going to be, if they get this win, it's going to be a very tough, hard-fought win. So give me Penn State +4.
Oh, it feels great to have you on the bandwagon. We can be sad together when this inevitably is a blowout for Ohio State.
Man, well, leave it to me to be the Ohio State defender. Joe, shout out you, bud. I'm
Ohio State
this weekend. I know that I'm the hater on this pod, but I think that Ohio State's the better team. If you look at the numbers right now between both of them, I think, McCord has been the better of the 2 quarterbacks. He's been extremely efficient. His passer rating is like 20 points higher. And I think that he's going to get it done. I think he's going to be able to go on the road. I think that there's no way that in this game, Marvin Harrison Jr. disappears. I just don't think you can disappear in this game. And when he's on, he's uncoverable. He just really can't be. I don't care how good your corners are on the other side. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is on, you can't cover him. I think he's going to have a big game. I don't think that he's going to be quite as good as your boy Rome up there, Mitch. I'm not disrespecting Washington, not coming up against, but I do think this is a huge game, breakout game for him. And I do think that Ohio State wins this one, not comfortably, but they'll cover the 4 points, maybe give them a touchdown.
I'm also rolling with Penn State. They were my playoff pick, my Big Ten champion before the season. And so, as I mentioned, on one hand, I think, oh gosh, I don't know that Penn State's really shown me what I need to see to just whole hog believe in them. But then I thought of that Ted Lasso meme where he's pointing at the believe sign. And I said, you know what, guys, we're going to believe in something tonight. I haven't gotten much right when it comes to the ledger, but when it has actually come to just outright winners, I'm well above 500 this year. So I've got some sort of juice. And I'm going to ride with my preseason playoff pick. I'm going to say the Nittany Lions find a way to get this done. Katron Allen's going to have to be huge for them in the running game. This cannot be the Drew Aller show. We do need to see Aller step up, have a moment in the sun. He needs to have some sort of highlight to go on Twitter, but Penn State's going to have to be very balanced in how they move the football. I like their defense more than Ohio State's, plain and simple. It is on the road. It is a gutsy pick, but I like Penn State to win this game, so I'll take them plus the 4.
Gracious, how about